Ideal mesmo para o mundo atual seria fazer o ensino médio junto com o curso técnico, certo? É no Senac que o aluno tem autonomia de verdade, formação cidadã, foco na diversidade, preparação para o Enem, material didático sem taxas e muito mais. Na real, tem tudo que você precisa para se sentir preparado para a vida. Seja para entrar no mundo do trabalho ou te ajudar a decidir o que fazer na faculdade. Quer saber? Senac. Vem comigo! Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino-médio-técnico.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. Gosh, I am glad to be with you. I hope you're having a great Thursday. The phone number is 877-973-7425 if you want to be on the program. Tomorrow, I gotta hang up here. I'm going to be with you live tomorrow. No pre-recording, no tricks. However, the last little bit of the program I just found out I'm going to have to pre-record and sneak out because my kid has all of a sudden been given her dorm move-in time, and her mother is going to help her with the bulk of it. But then I got to go get one kid from high school and then get to the college campus to help move the rest of the stuff in. And oh my gosh, I cannot believe I have a kid who is old enough to be moving into a college dorm. And also, I love that because it's August and the way ratings work in radio, I can't take off. So I don't have to do most of the moving in. No, I got to do the heavy lifting, but that's okay. It'll only be a few items towards the end of the day. She and my wife can cry together without me there to be miserable and crying. I want to talk to you about something, and I mentioned it yesterday, and I'm going to acknowledge up front. This is borderline conspiracy. Well, it's not even borderline. This is conspiracy theory on my part. And the more I've thought about it, and it got me thinking, the Iranians hacked into the Trump campaign and released a treasure trove of data related to the Trump campaign. And all of a sudden, the reports say, well, they don't like Biden either. They're trying to do it to Biden. They're trying to do it to Harris. They're trying to do all these things. It's not just Trump, except Trump's the one they hacked and released all the data for. They're saying, they're after the others. But really, here's what I know, and this is not in dispute. Iranian collaborators, agents, and sympathizers infiltrated the Biden administration. This is not a made-up story. It is a real and documented thing. We know that the ties are real, and there have been a whole lot of investigations. Semaphore, of course, broke this story back in September of 2023. In the spring of 2014, senior Iranian foreign ministry officials initiated a quiet effort to bolster Tehran's image and positions on global security issues by building ties with a network of influential overseas academic and researchers. They called it the Iran Experts Initiative. The scope and scale of the Iran Experts Initiative project has emerged in a large cache of Iranian government correspondence and emails reported for the first time by Semaphore and Iran International. The officials working under the then President Hassan Rouhani congratulated themselves on the impact of the initiative. At least two of the people on the foreign ministry's list were or became top aides to Robert Malley, the Biden administration's special envoy on Iran, who was placed on leave this June following the suspension of his security clearance. So let's back up here. In 2014, 10 years ago, Iran started the Iran Experts Initiative to build sympathies in the West, find think tanks and scholars sympathetic to Iran, and build relationships with those people. One of them became Robert Malley, who's been placed on administrative leave by the administration, and now it turns out some are accusing of having given confidential information to Iran. A third was hired by the think tank Malley ran when he left for the State Department. The documents offer deep and unprecedented new insight into the thinking and inner workings of Iran's foreign ministry at a crucial time in its nuclear diplomacy, even as Tehran's portrayals of events is questioned, if not flatly denied, by others involved in the Iran Experts Initiative. They show how Iran was capable of the kind of influence operations in the U.S. and its allies in the region. Emails were obtained and translated by Iran International, a Persian-language television news channel in London, which was briefly based in Washington due to Iranian government threats, and it was shared with Semaphore. The communications reveal the access Rouhani's diplomats have had to Washington and Europe's policy circles, particularly during the final years of the Obama administration through this network. One of the German academics, according to emails, offered to ghostwrite op-eds for officials in Tehran. Others would seek advice from the foreign ministry staff about attending conferences and hearings in the U.S. and Israel. The Iran Experts Initiative participants were prolific writers of op-eds and analyses and provided insights on television and Twitter. The emails described the IEI being initiated following Rouhani's 2013 election, when he was looking to find accommodation with the West on the nuclear issue. These people embedded when Joe Biden got into office, embedded inside the office. The initiative, which we call the Iran Experts Initiative, is consisted of a group of 6 to 10 distinguished second-generation Iranians who have established affiliations with the leading international think tanks and academic institutions, mainly in Europe and the United States. Saeed Khatibzadeh, a Berlin-based Iranian diplomat and future foreign ministry spokesman, wrote in 2014. Khatibzadeh wrote again a week later and said he had gained support for the IEI from 2 young academics, Aryan Tabatabai and Dina Esfandari, following a meeting with them in Prague. Tabatabai currently serves in the Pentagon as the Chief of Staff for the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations, a position that requires government security clearance. She had served as a diplomat on Malley's Iran nuclear negotiating team. Now, so we know Iranian sympathizers embedded within the Biden administration. There are all sorts of questions about Robert Malley. There are hints that he may have, the FBI is probing into whether or not he committed crimes. This is from May of this year. The FBI is investigating whether the Biden administration's Iran envoy, Robert Malley, moved classified information onto his personal email where it may have fallen into the hands of a foreign actor, Iran. Malley has denied wrongdoing and denied comment. His security clearance was suspended. Again, I realize I'm going down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole here, but hear me out. For 2 weeks, it has been obvious Iran was going to retaliate against Israel. In fact, the United States was so concerned, based on its intelligence, that it expedited the deployment of an aircraft carrier group and an attack submarine to the eastern Mediterranean to be prepared to assist Israel when the attack comes. Israeli and American intelligence leaked to the international press satellite photos of Iran moving missiles into position, and that Hezbollah was moving weapons stockpiles closer to its border with Israel. What if Iran isn't attacking because of what it would do to the Democratic National Convention next week? Iran was unable to embed sympathizers, agents, and spies into the Trump administration that we know of. They've all been in the Obama administration, and they've all been in the Biden administration. Every single one of you listening right now, Democrat, Republican, Independent, you know the Democrats are worried about riots in Chicago next week from the far left. And you know what gets the far left most agitated is when Israel throws a punch. If Iran and Hezbollah attack Israel, you know the punches are going to start flying. There will be chaos in the streets of Chicago. As I am talking to you at this very moment, who knows, missiles could be lifting off from Tehran. I don't know. If that's the case, I'm wrong. But isn't it wild that for 2 weeks, all the signals have been pointing to an Iranian response, and suddenly the guessing is, are they even going to do it? What if they're standing down so they don't interfere with Kamala Harris and cause chaos in the streets of Chicago? Listen, these are the people who hacked Donald Trump's campaign. These are the people who've embedded sympathizers and agents inside the Biden administration. Iran clearly has a vested interest in stopping the man who killed Qasem Soleimani from getting in office. So what if, intentionally or not, on direct communication or not, Iran is smart enough to read the tea leaves? Look, Benjamin Netanyahu is smart enough to read the tea leaves. Benjamin Netanyahu, 3 weeks ago, met with Kamala Harris and then went home and started a ruthless extermination campaign of all of Israel's enemies. He clearly got the signal that Kamala Harris might win and she'd be bad for Israel. So he went home and started killing everybody he could. It's not hard for Iran to interpret the same signals that Kamala Harris has a good chance of winning, and that would be good for us. Let's not rock the boat till after the convention. Avoid the riots. Iran fundamentally has a dog in the fight. Fundamentally, Iran opposes Donald Trump. Iran plotted an assassination attempt against Donald Trump. They want to stop Donald Trump. They've hacked Donald Trump's campaign. They've tried to release damaging information to the press, which will be the October surprise. They're making a big deal about not leaking it out now. They'll wait until October and do it. But what if Iran is pulling its punches to help Kamala Harris right now? Nobody wants to talk about it, of course. It sounds conspiratorial. But when you realize that they've hacked Trump, not Biden or Harris, when you realize they've embedded sympathizers and agents with Harris and Biden, when you realize that Kamala Harris's top advisor on those issues is compromised and less than objective when it comes to issues of Iran, it sure seems like the Iranians are picking a side, and the attack might not come. Now, here's the thing. We'll know I'm right or wrong if an attack comes before the Democratic National Convention or at the beginning of it, then I'm wrong. And by the way, I'm happy to be wrong on this. I'm happy to be wrong in thinking that our enemy has a vested interest in Kamala Harris getting elected. But if nothing happens until after the Democratic National Convention to forestall and stop the riots, I was right. And you'll know I'm right. And the Democrats will scream to high heaven that it's not true. You can't tie the two together, and you'll all know I was right. And that'll be a damning sign that the Iranians needed to wait to not disrupt the Democratic National Convention. And by the way, we also know the Iranians are paying these people internally. The CIA and the national security apparatus has now acknowledged Iran's payments to these groups inside this country. If they're doing restraint over there and they're restraining them here, it's all designed to avoid chaos in Chicago so Kamala Harris can get that nomination without the story being about the riots. We will see how this thing plays out over the next 2 weeks. All of our intelligence and all of Israel's intelligence has indicated the fight is coming. So much so, we rushed a carrier group and a submarine to get there as fast as possible, and that fight hasn't come. What is Iran waiting for? I hope it's not the Democratic National Convention. If the attack comes before then, we'll know for sure they're not thinking that way, and thank God for that. But if the attack comes after, it's going to be pretty obvious. They pull their punches until after the DNC because they didn't want to give Kamala Harris bad press.
Esse podcast é um oferecimento de Samsung Galaxy AI. E sabe o que mais ele te oferece? Que tal uma nova maneira de buscar na internet a partir de fotos ou do que está na sua tela? Fácil, fácil. Viu? Circulou? Encontrou. Ou quem sabe um assistente de notas para gravar reuniões, transcrever gravações e organizar, produzindo resumos eficientes. Tem tanta coisa que o Samsung Galaxy AI pode fazer por você. Clique aí no banner para descobrir o que. Galaxy AI, a inteligência artificial nas suas mãos.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry. Everybody's talking about it. Billions of dollars invested, so buckle up. The problem is AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, Databricks, Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/Erickson, ERICKSON. That's oracle.com/Erickson, oracle.com/Erickson. Go check them out today. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. Yes, you can be on the show. Happy to have you with me, 877-973-7425. Need a word with you real quick. You hear a promo on occasion, our army of activists, and we're changing things up. I'm moving to a more efficient site. You guys over time have said you want solutions. You don't just want to complain about stuff. And so if you text the word Army to 33777, you get a link back and fill out your information, and you're subscribed. So if there's an action item like I need you to call Congress or call a state legislature in your area. The problem is the site we use got bought. It wound up being less robust and more expensive, and so I had to move everything. But in order to move everything, everybody's got to update their information because we got to make sure we know what state you're in, because I don't want to send those of you in California, for example, an action alert for people in Virginia and vice versa. So if you text the word Army to 33777, you'll get a link to the new portal, and you can put in your name and your zip code, your cell phone if you want to, you don't have to, and that'll be able to allow us to send you emails or text messages as needed, depending on your preference, to get you in. So then what happens is, like, let's say, for example, Congress in the budget fight over raising the debt ceiling and stuff. We'll make it real easy for you to click a link and connect you to your member of Congress on your cell phone, so you can call them and say, don't you raise the debt ceiling. We try to make it as interactive as possible for you, but you got to text the word Army to 33777. Emails are going to be going out to people on the list, and messages this afternoon asking people to update their information so everybody can be as engaged and effective as possible, because I want you to be able to have solutions, not just complain. Now, I got to tell you all a quick story. My son goes to, now that my oldest has graduated, my son goes to a small classical Christian school. They refer to it as a kingdom school, a kingdom school. We're there for the kingdom of God. They got into their computer class yesterday, and every kid was given an auto-generated password. And they had to hand the password over to the teacher to keep in case they lost it. My son's password, he said, began FUKU and a series of numbers. He got it. He wrote it on a piece of paper, and he says, I can't hand this to you, says this to the teacher. Says, I can't hand this to you. We're a kingdom school. So I got to get a new, well, he can't get a new password. He's stuck with the near bad word as part of his password. He's very horrified. Can't tell anybody his password. All right, let me tell you about Old Glory Bank. Old Glory Bank is my bank. They are an online bank, but unlike every other online bank, with Old Glory Bank, you can still deposit cash to the bank. You can do checks through their mobile app. They got a great app, by the way. But also, they generate a QR code with mobile app. You take it to one of 88,000 retail locations. Hand them your cash. It goes into your account. I've used it a bunch of times, and it just works. I have direct deposit in mine. Everything works. Old Glory Bank, you can get no-fee checking, no-fee savings. You can get mortgages, loans, whatever you need. They're a real bank, and they won't cancel you because they're by conservatives for conservatives. So if you're a gun store and you need a bank and you're worried about your bank shutting you down because of the left, Old Glory Bank, you never have that problem. They're great to do business with. OldGloryBank.com, OldGloryBank.com. You can get an account for you or your kid or your business in less than like 5-6 minutes. I mean, it does not take long to fill out the form and get your account going. OldGloryBank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender, terms and conditions apply, and yes, it really is my bank.
Tem momento na carreira que precisamos dar passo além. É hora de fazer uma pós-graduação. Só que muitas vezes o custo pesa no bolso, inviabilizando tudo. Com a pós-graduação do Senac, você não tem esse problema. Cursos com até 50% de desconto e muito mais tempo para pagar. TCC opcional, modelo flexível com aulas presenciais e online e alguns cursos com apenas 12 meses de duração. Não tem mais desculpa, hein? Saiba mais em sp.senac.br/pós-graduação.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I am happy to have you. I gotta just comment real quick here. Funny thing happened yesterday. I did noted a story that shows that families that laugh and parents who have senses of humor, their kids tend to be more optimistic and happier and less prone to despair and depression, and oftentimes use humor to get themselves through bad situations. And that is absolutely the truth in my family. We have a dark sense of humor, and we all laugh about the stories that say people with dark senses of humor have higher rates of dementia when they grow old. Okay. Well, we'll forget all the punchlines and tell the jokes all over again, so they'll be doubly funny if that's the case. But nonetheless, people have started emailing me their favorite jokes, and I appreciate them. Many of them I have heard before. Y'all don't understand my sense of humor. You don't. I have a very bad sense of humor. My buddy Braden says at some point I need to just get one of those comedy clubs rented out for like my 50th birthday and take everybody's cell phone so nobody can record it and just stand on stage and tell people all of the stories that I tell friends off air that are not allowed to be told on air. And that would be a comedy show in and of itself. Yes, maybe one day I'll do that. Nonetheless, you don't have to send me your jokes. I promise you I've heard your joke before that you're sending me. But thank you for thinking of me. Very much appreciate it. But you don't have to if you don't want to. Now, we got to move on to price controls. Donald Trump has hit on a good line. And by the way, I want you to know I wanted to try to go an entire show and not even talk about the presidential race. I'm kind of tired of talking about it, and yet here we are. I got to talk about some of it because it is news. And at the top of the next hour, those of you who are getting a little bit discouraged, you need to stick around. Let me see if I can encourage you somewhat, because there is a lot of news out there that is getting glossed over by a media that, of course, wants Harris to win. That's actually good for Trump. And I want to explain that to you. If you got friends falling into despair, tell them turn on the radio. In 30 minutes, I'll get to it. Right now, however, I want to start with this. This is Donald Trump in Asheville, North Carolina, yesterday.
Kamala has declared that tackling inflation will be a day one priority. Just think of it, for her, but day one for Kamala was 3.5 years ago. Why hasn't she done it?
Why hasn't she done it? He's standing before a background that says no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security. Kamala Harris now, of course, wants to embrace no taxes on tips. Jared Bernstein is the White House economic advisor who tried to defend the inflationary report yesterday. Let me explain this. Let him explain this one to you in his vantage point.
The White House at this point think that the inflation problem is solved?
The momentum is certainly in the right direction. Inflation is reliably coming down.
Inflation is reliably coming down. You've got people yelling that things are headed in the right direction. Inflation is down. And then Bernstein went on this tirade about gas prices.
One other thing he also just said was, my policies are working, there's going to be a soft landing, start writing that way. Do you know if he feels that the economic coverage has generally been off or wrong?
Well, what do you think he meant by start writing that way?
I'm asking.
I mean, I that's the first I've heard that he said that. I can only interpret it, to mean that he thinks that that's not being done.
Do you think that?
Do I think what specifically?
That coverage about the economy has generally been off or wrong?
I don't know one way or the other. I read a lot of your work and I see stuff I like and stuff that doesn't resonate with me as much. There's been some nice research on this over at the Brookings Institute. My former colleague Ben Harris and others have looked at the extent to which reporting has been increasingly negative on the economy. And they find, and they're crunching some real numbers, that that's been the case. There was another study that I found pretty well, looked to me that was pretty rigorous, that suggested that the media tends to write about the gas price when it goes north of 350 and not when it goes south of 350. So the gas price, as I looked this morning, was I think 345. And if you haven't written about it, maybe you want to.
Really? You want him to write about gas prices at $3.45 a gallon and point out they're $1 higher than when Donald Trump was last president. Okay, I encourage that. Kamala Harris, of course, wants to take on price gouging. Notice how price gouging was not a thing until inflation hit. And the Democrats have tried to distract from it ever since by saying it's not inflation, it's companies shrinkflation. They're shrinking the size of your Snickers bar. That was actually a claim that Joe Biden actually made, and it wasn't true, that the Snicker bar, candy bar, has gotten smaller. It's not actually true. And, of course, she wants price controls, which is what Nicolas Maduro has used to starve the people of Venezuela. It's what the Soviets used to cause bread lines. It's what the Cubans have used to cause economic calamity there. Price controls don't work. You don't have to believe me. Here's a great story for you out of Argentina. President Milei down there. President Milei has gotten rid of rent control. Massive housing shortages in Argentina. And President Javier Milei has gotten rid of price controls for houses. And suddenly there's not only a housing supply, but there's actually been a drop in rental prices. Yeah, this is one of the things that the price control people say, is that if you get rid of price controls, rent prices will skyrocket because those greedy corporations and landlords are going to skyrocket the prices if you get rid of price controls. Actually, rental prices have fallen in Argentina and housing supply has come open. Why? Because the landlords keep the prices as high as possible, knowing the government won't let them adjust them. And they lock people out of housing, and they don't make housing available because they don't want to get stuck. And now that that's all gone away, they're making housing available for rent that wasn't previously available for rent because they know if they change their mind, they can get out of it. And because of the overabundance now of places to rent, the actual rental prices have gone down. It's economics 101, something that Kamala Harris doesn't understand. But it's happening in Argentina, not this country. In this country, the Democratic presidential candidate intends to run on price controls and price gouging and forcing companies to not jack up prices. That is ultimately price controls. What's so notable is the left says, this isn't price controls, this isn't price, it's just against gouging. Now, does gouging happen? Allegedly gouging happens. I'll tell you one of the rules that I despise. I live in the South. We have this natural disaster on occasion called a hurricane that rolls through. When hurricanes roll through, governments order gas stations to freeze their gas prices. The result is gas stations run out of gas. And some gas stations jack up their prices in advance, and they get sued for price gouging. In the free market, a business should be allowed to jack up the price. And if they're taking advantage of crisis, they're taking advantage of crisis. And you can choose not to shop at that gas station. You can choose to tell everyone what that gas station owner did and drive him out of business. But the state should not be allowed to tell the owner of the gas station you can't jack up your gas prices. I personally find that wrong. But it happens. And the reason it happens is because there are always gas station owners who hear the hurricane is coming and they skyrocket their gas price, knowing that if people have to flee and they're going to need gas and they come to him, he's going to make more money. The left calls this price gouging. I call this how the market works. How does the market also work? People get mad at that guy for taking advantage of him, and they stop shopping there and put him out of business. It's how the market works. The creative destruction of the marketplace. Kamala Harris, however, isn't really talking about those crises. She's trying to claim that inflation is actually price gouging. It's not the government that did this. She, of course, was the tie-breaking vote on the stimulus plan that caused inflation. She was. It was a 50-50 vote, and she had to cast the tie-breaking vote in the Senate to get it done. She doesn't want to own up to it, so she's trying to blame businesses. Here's the problem, though, and it's also the way that these businesses discuss inflation generally. They say inflation has gone down. Now, in inflation, the rate of inflation is still going up, just not up as fast. If you listen to the news coverage on MSNBC, CNBC, CNN, and the like, you would think that prices are going down. Prices aren't going down. They're just not going up as high. So if I'm 200 pounds and I gain 10 pounds and then I gain 5 pounds, it's not that I'm not losing weight anymore. It's that I'm slowed down how much weight I'm gaining. I had gained 10 pounds and then 5 pounds, so I'm up to 215 from 200. That's an increase. But the way the media would be reporting it right now, if it was inflation, was to say, oh, you've been losing weight. You had gained 10 pounds. Now you've only gained 5 pounds. You've lost weight. That's the way the media is reporting inflation. Inflation is up over 30% since Kamala Harris became vice president of the United States. It's still going up. Inflation is still going up. It's just not going up as fast. I played a little bit of this yesterday. This is an extended clip of J.D. Vance in Michigan talking about inflation.
Sir. New York Times, I wanted to ask you about the latest economic news from this morning with inflation now being under 3%, the lowest rate since mid-2021. What is your sort of reaction to that news?
Well, I think the crowd reaction says it all. Look, when they say that inflation is down, they mean from a baseline where groceries are already 30% more expensive than they were when Donald Trump was president. And they're not saying it's coming down. They're just saying it's not going up as fast as it was 3 years ago. That is not a reputation or a record to brag on. That's a record to be ashamed of. Why did it take them so long to get inflation to where it is? And why are prices so high? It's because Kamala Harris failed to do her job. So if they want to go around, and this is, it's funny. Kamala Harris, on the one hand, will say, on day one, we're going to tackle the affordability crisis. And like I said earlier, Kamala Harris has been the vice president for 3.5 years. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, she's in effect been the acting president because we all know Joe Biden isn't home. So she's been the one controlling government policy for 3.5 years. She says she wants to tackle the affordability crisis on day one. And then on the other hand, she'll say, oh, we've already got inflation under control. Well, which is it, Kamala? Which is it? The simple truth is America's credit card debt is getting higher. Americans are finding the basic necessities of middle-class life less affordable. Americans are becoming, especially young people, are becoming paupers in their own country. If we don't do better, our young generation, they're not going to own anything. They're not going to have anything. They're going to be renters in the country that their parents and grandparents built. Inflation is a disaster. Kamala Harris does not have a leg to stand on.
He's not wrong. But yes, the way the media treats it is, oh, inflation's down, the economy's recovered. No, grocery prices have not come back down to where they were. Neither have gas prices. And yet to the left, they consider this some sort of success that Kamala Harris can talk about. And because she's got to distract from her tie-breaking vote, she's decided to claim that she's going to go after price gouging. Price gouging. You know what happens when you attack price gougers? All the prices go up to a level, because if all the prices go up, you can say, well, I'm not gouging. I'm doing what everybody else is doing. It's not gouging if we're all doing it. So then the government passes new laws on collusion. And so then they just get on Twitter and say, I think I got to do X, Y, and Z, and these other companies are probably going to have to as well. And so then they openly talk about it. So again, it becomes not actually a collusion. It doesn't become anything like that. There are always ways around it, and those ways wind up always benefiting the corporation. If you go the opposite direction, what Milei did in South America and Argentina is he got rid of rent price controls, and it brought down the price of rents and made housing more affordable and opened more houses to be rented as landlords decided they could do this and not get stuck by the government. And it's been a win-win in Argentina. It is amazing to me that Milei is smarter than all the politicians in this country when it comes to actually dealing with the economy. Now, if you read Imprimis from Hillsdale College, they've got a lot there in Imprimis that it's just eye-opening. It's thought-provoking. It's always good, and you can get Imprimis if you go to ericforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com. Not only that, you can also help them with their classical education around the country. They're doing an education program for K through 12 education for private schools, public schools, charter schools, homeschools available. Some states are picking it up like Arizona, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Florida. It's an available form of curriculum. It's a great curriculum. Classical education teaches kids critical thinking skills, how to think, not be indoctrinated, but it's donor supported, as is Hillsdale College, because Hillsdale doesn't take any federal money. It is the sort of college conservatives should be proud of. It doesn't take any federal money, but it relies on generous donations. They're tax deductible. You go to ericforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com. Start a relationship with Hillsdale College today, and also get Imprimis for free. It's so worth it. This hour of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. You're buying a building, you're building a building, you're buying a franchise, you need a heavy equipment loan. Well, First Liberty makes its own decisions, and they're not going to change up your lender every 6 months. It's the same Frost family that's been there since the 90s. If you want a relationship with a great company that is committed to helping businesses grow, reach out to them, firstlibertyga.com. Any business nationwide, they'd love to help you, firstlibertyga.com. Now, I want to go to the phones here. Andrew, you're going to be up first. Welcome. How are you?
Hey, how are you doing today?
Great. What's going on?
Nothing much. I just want to make a comment. You were discussing price gouging, price controls as far as petroleum was concerned during hurricanes. And I just remember back when I studied basic econ at university, you read Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith, and one of the things he discusses in the book is his argument against price controls was that what it does is that it creates an effective allocation of supplies. If you let the vendor charge as much as he wants, let's say $15 a gallon for gas during a hurricane, it means the next guy who comes along can't show up with a 500-gallon tank on a trailer and buy a bunch of gasoline. Instead, it just means, though it's at a very high price, it's going to be available for everybody. So that's an important reason why you should let them charge a high price for it during time of crisis.
Look, that's so well said, and it makes a ton of sense. It's an efficient allocation of resources. That's what the free market does, and there's nothing actually wrong with it. You may not like it at the time, but it allows you to have available gas, even though it's a high price. As Andrew just said, the next guy's not going to be able to come along with a massive tank and fill it up when gas prices are that high, which is going to leave available gas for you in the tank to be able to get where you need in crisis. Price gouging is a socialist theory more often than not that is used against companies that are having to set prices based on the economic policies of a government that is out to ruin business. The price gouging laws and price stability laws and fixed price laws of countries that are socialist and communist are overwhelming and chaotic, and they're bad. They cause food shortages. They cause rationing. This is not hypothetical. We know this across. I mean, really, we know this from the real world. We know this from the Soviet Union. We know this from the Eastern Bloc nations. We know this from Venezuela. We know this from Cuba. We know this from North Korea. We know this even from China. So it's a bad idea. We also know this from states that have hurricanes where they impose their price gouging laws and suddenly every gas station is out of gas. That's just the way it works. Now, I want to switch gears. When we come back, a lot of you are despairing over the Trump campaign situation right now. There's actually data out there the media is not covering that actually shows things aren't that bad for Donald Trump right now. Is there room for improvement? Yes. Is the momentum with Kamala Harris? Yes. Will the momentum stay with Kamala Harris? Probably not. The more she opens her mouth, which is why they're keeping her mouth shut. I want to dive into that for you. Some encouragement for those of you beginning to despair. There's still over 80 days to go, people, so calm down. Just listen to me. Tell your friends. Tune in. I'll be right back.